things of nature, things of that 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 nature.
Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope you slept it off a little bit. Curtis Wilkerson here alongside Andrew Ellis with Inside Arkansas for your Arkansas UAB post-game report card. We needed to sleep on it before we started handing out position grades from yesterday. Yes, Arkansas did win 37-27, moved to 2-1 on the season. And boy, it really depends on what kind of Razorback fan you are to determine how you felt about that game. And we've been getting two very polar opposite types of reactions from the fans who were on our post-game, Andrew, and also the ones who've been in the comments of the stuff that we put out since. Either you are very much in the camp of, man, I just want to win, and so I'm going to take it however I can get it because the alternative is losing, and that sucks. Or, boy, not all wins are created equal, and that one was it was ugly.
Yeah, and I think there's been a lot of people who have had the sentiment of kind of, well, it was a tough performance, but if Arkansas is able to recover from this and win, then it doesn't matter, which is technically true. But Curtis, I just don't want to be the person who continues to overlook red flags and continues to make excuses for things that frankly have popped up a lot 3 weeks into the season. It's a little early for a lot of these things to already be falling apart a little bit. And there's a lot to get into. And so, I've calmed down a little bit from my disgust at the performance yesterday, but I still have plenty of questions, plenty of concerns. And I look forward to hashing them out with you after we've slept for about 4 hours on it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it also. And what I will say is there's going to be this is going to be harsh, I think, and there's going to be a natural reaction of people going, "Oh, they won the game. This is clickbait. You guys are just mad, like whatever." And then there's also, like you said, the sentiment of, well, they could just turn around and beat Auburn by 2 scores next weekend, and this is all forgotten. And it was an overreaction. No, it's not. This is bad. And you can't just forecast into the future something that may or may not happen. I expect Arkansas to go play well enough to win the game at Auburn. Whether they'll do it or not, I don't know. But that is exactly what this program is one that plays to the level of its competition, almost good enough. They went down to Oklahoma State and played a great game, but they kicked themselves in the foot just enough to lose. And then you have a bounce back opportunity against UAB where you should just completely dominate them. And you come out flat and uninspired and unfocused, and you nearly get beat on your home field. That's just kind of where they're at. They're stuck in this, near mediocrity, and it's something they're going to have to get out of if they're going to take a step forward as a program. And if Sam Pittman's tenure is going to continue at Arkansas, because he was dangerously close to really, really kind of stirring those flames again. And it's going to be tough on them in SEC play if they don't clean some of this stuff up. So quarterback, Andrew, let's start there. It was a rough day at the office for Mr. Taylor Green. 11 of 26 passing, 161 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. Accuracy, we've seen the full spectrum with him now, where he can be super dynamic or he can be bad. Right. And he was bad yesterday. Still made some plays with his legs. Ran it 17 times. It's way too many against UAB, but 96 yards and a couple scores there. Where you at on Mr. Taylor Green?
Yeah, so I'm I'll tell you, Curtis, we both looked at the PFF grades just before we did this, and I'll tell you, I am not as optimistic as PFF was about the performance yesterday. I'm not going to be as harsh as probably you are, and I think fairly a lot of fans are, simply because I am looking at the full picture, and his legs, while we didn't want him to have to use them as much as he did, frankly gave Arkansas a chance to really put the game away down the stretch. And I like the way that he kind of took charge in the run game and kept the ball a little bit. I felt like that was actually a big deal, at least in yesterday's game. Again, do I want to see it a ton moving forward? Do I want him having to put his body on the line against UAB? No. But if that is why I'm between D+ and C- are kind of where I'm at. Because the legs really make me want to go the C-, but I can't get over that first half. For one, he turned the ball over. If he simply hadn't turned the ball over, I could kind of be talked into closer to the C range. But you have a turnover that directly leads to a touchdown. I think it took, I mean, he started, what was it, like 0 of 8, 0 of 9, or maybe 1 of 9. Like, it took him a while to really get going. And that's obviously something that we've seen before. We saw it against UAPB, where it took him a really long time to really get a rhythm. And he wasn't horrible in the second half, I didn't think, if you just take it throw by throw. And he made, actually, what's funny is he made like 3 of some of the best throws he's made all year. Like that one to Armstrong that really got Arkansas going and flipped the field. Or I guess that was maybe in the second quarter, but he made a couple just beautiful throws, but just too much, too erratic, and took too long to get going. And that's something that Arkansas was able to overcome Saturday. But you just can't come out that out of sync, that flat. He was late a lot. I know the announcers were really ragging on him hard for being late and not getting the ball out quick enough. There were a couple of his incompletions where he may have been on target, but he took so long to get to that progression, get through the play, and get it out that defenders had enough time to adjust. There was times early in the first half it felt like he was legitimately rattled. And so, yeah, the accuracy continues to be a little bit in question. He had the one turnover,
a little bit
turnover in the red zone, which was really, really an issue, which almost cost Arkansas badly. But I'm going to go D+ at the end of the day. I think he did enough in the run game to get that plus, and I felt like that was actually a big deal for Arkansas. But moving forward, I know Taylor Green's going to play better, but yesterday I can't give him too high of a grade. I got to go D+.
Congratulations on being faster than a UAB defender. F. That was terrible. It was not good. There was nothing redeeming about that. I mean, cool. You were able to escape UAB. That stuff is going to end here soon against SEC defenses. The passing was terrible. It just wasn't good. He completed 1 out of his first 10 passes. He was all over the place. He turned the ball off. The passes that he was completing, like you said, they were either late or to the wrong guy because you missed somebody who was streaking wide open, or not on time or on target. Just not good. The mechanics were off, and that was footwork. It was the throwing motion. Wasn't reading the defense as well as he typically does. It just wasn't a good performance at all. And I hope that he doesn't accept it. I don't think Razorback fans accept it. When you're playing UAB and people are, going off the ledge, wanting Malachi Singleton in there by the second quarter, you're not off to a very good start there. That just, I can't back that one. So I'm going F, and if that's harsh, oh well. And I hopefully Razorback fans agree that it needs to be a hell of a lot better than that going into SEC play, because that's just not going to cut it. That's the full spectrum though with Taylor Green. Like we said, we have seen in the first 2 games of the season how good and how dynamic he can be. And now we've seen the bottom end of that. The part of it where, we've got Boise State fans who are in our comments saying, yeah, that's what we remember. That's the stuff that you have to avoid. I think he's improved. He's going to play better. Absolutely. He'll play better at Auburn next weekend. I have no doubt about that. But he's going to have another game or 2 like this. Hopefully not quite as bad as this. Got to be consistent, man. And when you're having those struggles like that at quarterback, it limits what Bobby Petrino can do and what the rest of the offense can do in terms of dialing things up and sustaining drives. It was one of those situations where deep into the first half, I was going, why are they passing at all? Just hand the ball off. You're getting 12 yards a pop running it, whether it's Green or Jaquindon Jackson or whoever. Just stop throwing it if it's not working. It felt like watching that UNLV game from Friday night all over again. Got to be better. So maybe I'm harsh, whatever. I'm going F. Running back though, I'm the polar opposite of that. I'm going A. I think that is the bright spot of this offense. Jaquindon Jackson is an absolute monster. I think he's a special back, man. The way I haven't seen a guy hit the whole on an opposing defense the way he does. He's a workhorse. Great. And even though he was getting checked on by the trainers again a couple times, it seems like he was healthy and he was moving good. I love Jaquindon. Handing the ball 30 times for all I care. Was happy for Braylon Russell. Even though he only got 1 carry, hey, you made the most of it, man. You got a touchdown. That's efficiency. They need to get Rashad Dubinion healthy and back as a part of this offense. I really think they do. I like Rodney Hill, 3 for 23. So, I mean, that was made the most of the carries that he had there. Dominion just strikes me as the guy who should be the number 2 on this roster. And I don't know what's going on there. What was wrong with him? Knee or something?
I don't know, because it really wasn't a big story during camp of like, oh, Dominion's out or whatever. But yeah, I guess knee. But it's so weird how it's played out because he played in week 1.
Right.
He came in the second half of that game. It is very weird. I guess it's a knee.
Yeah, I would feel better about that going into conference play where, you know, the defenders are a little bit bigger and stronger and more athletic. So you don't want Jackson taking so much punishment. But they seem like they really trust Rodney Hill there. And I've been impressed with him in the past, so maybe they'll be fine. But yeah, as far as yesterday is concerned, Jaquindon, 9.8 yards a pop. That's solid work.
Yeah, I went A as well. And frankly, you could really make an argument for A+, because like there's not much to nitpick here. I mean, nobody put the ball on the turf. Braylon Russell made the literal most of his every yard that was available to him, he picked up. Rodney Hill had a couple little nice runs there that he was able to get through. Jaquindon also caught a pass or two, and it's crazy that he only got 15 carries because it felt like every time Arkansas was on offense and moved the ball, it was like 6 Jaquindon Jackson carries. But I guess he broke off a couple long ones, so he didn't have to carry it that many times. Yeah, no, I don't have much to critique here. I think that was a really good performance from the entire group. I am kind of just miffed by the whole Rashad Dominion situation as well, especially because now you're going into conference play where it would be nice to have a guy who's been there, you know, and just been in those situations, knows what the SEC is like, can make guys miss the line of scrimmage. We're not saying, hey, he needs to be splitting the time with Jaquindon Jackson. I don't think anybody should be splitting time with him. I think he's the bell cow, but I do think I agree with your assessment that it would be nice to see Rashad Dominion get out there, and it's kind of just weird how it's played out. But yeah, running back position, man, it's hard to knock too much. I thought they did a really good job. And Jaquindon, man, on his touchdown run, he saw daylight and just hit it. And I love to see that, man. He made a lot of guys miss. I don't know how many broken tackles PFF credited him with, but I would imagine 7, 8, 9, maybe even double digits.
Yeah, probably so. He's a stud, man. I'm kind of graduating from Jaquindon Jackson as one of the best running backs in the SEC to maybe he's one of the best running backs in the country, or maybe he is the best running back in the SEC. I mean, we need to see it play out over the course of the next few weeks here, I think, to really, you know, stand on business with that declaration. But man, he's been really, really impressive for sure.
Leading the SEC in rushing, right?
Leading the SEC in rushing. Yeah, he's nearly 400 yards, I think, through 2 games and a ton of touchdowns. So he's been really good. Or maybe he's over 400 yards now, actually.
I think he's got to be, right? Because he had 101, 147. Maybe not quite.
Okay. He's closing in on it.
My math is struggling, but I don't think he's quite over 400.
Wide receiver. This one's tricky, and I'm kind of anxious to see what you have to say about it, because you had quarterback problems in this game, and so that factors into it. But the receivers did leave some things on the table there as well, and quite frankly, only one of them was worth noting, I guess, in this game. So
that is accurate. One of them was worth noting. I gave the group a C+, and I'll just be honest with you. If Andrew Armstrong did not exist, I don't know what this grade would be, frankly. There wouldn't be a ton to evaluate. But Curtis, the reason I'm going C+, which I don't know if you're higher or lower, we'll see, but I just am really disappointed because I didn't come into this year thinking that Arkansas was Andrew Armstrong or bust in the passing game. I didn't think he was going to be the only receiver that could get open consistently on third down. I mean, there were times where Talon would just throw it up for him, and he would come down with it. It was crazy. There was multiple times where he was able to bail him out, which you'd love to see. And look, Andrew Armstrong is an absolute stud. It's an NFL wide receiver playing college football. I truly believe. I hope he gets drafted, man. It's really awesome to see the way his career has played out. And by the way, I know we've talked about Andrew Armstrong as a D2 guy, but I want to go on a quick little rant here, Curtis. We're talking about a guy who redshirted his first year of college football at Texas A&M Commerce at what was at that time a D2 school. He redshirted and then, got on the field a little bit as a redshirt freshman. Oh, by the time his sophomore year comes around, hey, he's catching a ton of passes. Yeah, look at him. He's great. And then he comes to Arkansas and he just immediately becomes a wide receiver 1. Like, he's every single year of college, I believe this is either his 5th or 6th year, he's made exponential strides forward. And based on where he was at last year, I didn't really think that was possible, frankly, for him to take a massive step forward. But dude, he's done it. Like this dude's on pace to be one of the leading receivers in the conference, despite missing the first game of the year. Cannot say enough about Andrew Armstrong and just how impressive he has been. I mean, he's just the consistency this Arkansas offense needs. And I didn't expect them to need Andrew Armstrong as much as they do. And that's what really gives me some concern. I know they got Satania a couple quick little receptions there on the tap pass that probably shouldn't have been a pass, but they ruled that one. Broden, I feel like, is the big one here, where that was a guy that we kind of viewed as a duo with Andrew Armstrong. They were the guys in the spring where it's like, oh man, hey, this is going to be a legit fun duo here. Broden, we got duped. We got duped by the spring practice performance. He was awesome in spring, and then just hasn't really been able to replicate that, has not been consistent. And I also think, Curtis, there's a bigger conversation here probably that we're going to have about Taylon's rapport with this receiving group, because there's a lot of out of sync of, oh, I thought you were going this way. Oh, wait, no, I was trying to throw you open here. And it seems like there's a lot of miscommunications there. CJ Brown, we got to acknowledge the tough target that was thrown his way. And, Satania, we'll see if they're able to get him going a little bit more. But, yeah, receiver, I'm just a little bit disappointed by this group. And, frankly, I don't know if we're doing – I can't remember if we did tight ends lumped in with them. But I'll throw tight end in there as well, because I'm kind of surprised that the tight ends aren't featured at all in this offense.
Yeah, I went C- with the receivers. Like, I don't know, Andrew Armstrong gets an A+, and everybody else gets an F because they no-showed. That's just kind of where I'm at with it. Armstrong was targeted 13 times and made 8 receptions. We talked so much, even in that UAPB game in the buildup, when we didn't think that Armstrong was going to play, we didn't know if he was going to be available for Oklahoma State. We talked about the importance of Taylon Green having a security blanket that just reliable, that he knows he can go to at any time. Goodness, I didn't think it was going to be like that. So yeah, I mean, thank God for Andrew Armstrong for sure. You're right. So I echo everything you said positive about him there. He's been unbelievable. Yeah, the Broden thing is it's unfortunate because all signs pointed to him as a guy who was ready to break out. But he ain't it. He hasn't been. Drops, just cutting route short, falling down. It's been weird. And to talk about the chemistry or the rapport, yeah, him and Taylon Green just don't seem to be in sync. And it's very, very obvious when you watch those two try to make connections. So they're going to have to figure that out, and it's hard for me to say, or try somebody else, because the question is who. I mean, if you look at it in terms of the guys who were targeted, it was Andrew Armstrong 13 times. Tyrone Broden had 6 targets and 0 receptions, and they weren't really throwing anybody else. Isaiah Satania was targeted twice. He had 2 receptions. CJ Brown had the drop. That was it for the receivers. Other than that, it was Quentin Jackson and Rodney Hill and Luke Haas. So I don't know. I mean, for it to be such a deep group, what do you really have going on there? Like, where's Jordan Anthony? Where's Monte Harrison? Where are all these guys that, that we heard so much about, made you think, I'll be the first to admit, I was the one before the season going, gosh, man, I'm really anxious to see this travel roster for receivers, because they're just going to have to leave some really good players at home. I wish that was true. I wish it was true. I'm waiting to see. So
not going to be much of a fight when they cut down that travel roster for Auburn. It'll be like, well, they made no plays, man. It's going to be easy. It's going to be hard to find 7 to bring.
I know. Yeah, it's pretty wild, man. And so looking at the snap counts at receiver, yeah, like Armstrong had a ton of them. Broden actually had more. Broden had the most with 59 in this game. But then, yeah, there's a big drop off, man. Satania was in on 34, Tesla in on 20. Now he actually might have been the second best receiver in the game. Yeah, he had a couple opportunities there, and they just held him because they couldn't defend him. So
unguardable.
Yeah, you got to give him a little bit of credit for that. But man, Jordan Anthony played 7 snaps. Monte Harrison played 3. CJ Brown played 3, and that's it.
Are we grading Monte Harrison's nearly housing that onside kick? Are we counting that for the receivers or no?
Hell no. Absolutely not. No, we're not. And it's the closest he came to catching a ball, so that's good. We'll give him credit for that. And so, yeah, and then we move on to tight end. I can't grade tight end.
Yeah, I genuinely can't.
Luke Haas is a great blocker, so that's cool. I'm glad. But it's another game in his career at Arkansas wasted because they don't throw him the ball. I just don't understand. Nobody's going to be able to justify that to me. It's weird to me. So, I don't know whether I should give it an incomplete or just say, okay, yeah, I know blocking's a part of the position. So, C, because he did really good at that. It's just crazy that they're not finding ways to get somebody that talented the football. You got to feed your studs, man. Like, I don't know, like Andreas Posca is here to block. And he did. He does that, and he played 20 snaps. Maddox Lassiter's in there playing, nearly double-digit snaps at tight end.
I was going to say, are we grading fullbacks today?
Right.
Maddox Arkansas has a fullback. Maddox Lassiter is Arkansas. They ran a lot of I formation, and he was he was like one of the highest graded players on the team, PFF.
Yeah, no, he was solid, and so kudos to all that. But when you're struggling to find wide receivers that you can rely on and count on outside of Andrew Armstrong, my goodness, when you've got Luke Hasz and Ty Washington and they're just wasting away, use them. And so, like, I don't know, like I give it I guess a C just because I don't know what to do with it. Yeah. But it's almost like a indictment on the game plan or something, or on the quarterback for not seeing. I don't know. It's that's just baffling to me. Almost as baffling as something on the defense. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I don't know what to make of tight end, Andrew.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm supposed to grade this either, especially because there's just not much for us to grade. I mean, I would love to sit there and break down the blocking scheme in the film. So if y'all want us to do that, maybe we'll just do that. But yeah, it is kind of baffling to me that it hasn't been featured more. And it's not one of those things where like, oh, they're trying to get him the ball and it's just not working. Teams are stuffing it out. Like there's a lot of times on passing downs, they take Luke Hasz out of the game. Mm-hmm. They did that a lot against Oklahoma State. And so it's like, I don't know if it's just they don't view him as that guy, but I don't know, man. The guy I watched last year as a freshman feels like a guy that you would want to have in this offense. And he seems like, frankly, if you were getting the Luke Hasz you got last year, and I'm not saying like Luke's underperforming, because I really don't think he's been given a chance here. If you had that kind of difference maker added to this offense, it'd be really, this is a hard team to guard. You take into account Jaquin Jackson, Andrew Armstrong, now you got Luke Hasz, and you use the word safety blanket to talk about Andrew Armstrong. I thought Luke Hasz was going to be that for Taylor Green as well. Yeah. Where just a quick dump it off in the flat and you get 8 yards. He'll make a guy miss. Oh, you got a mismatch on a linebacker. Oh, we can go to him in the red zone. Like I thought he was going to be kind of that guy you could lean on when all things are lost. And so, yeah, I'm really stunned by how it's played out here with the tight end position, man. It just doesn't seem to be a thing that they're worried about getting involved in the offense. And frankly, Ty Washington is another guy that I would like to see featured a little bit more. It seems like every time they throw to him, good things happen.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I'm trying to look here and see how much he played. Yeah, 16 snaps for Ty Washington. I didn't remember really seeing him out there aside from times. Yeah, Gums was out there for a few plays. Washington was one of the guys who was just streaking wide open down the middle of the field, and just Taylor just didn't see him.
Bum.
Offensive line. I'm torn a little bit on offensive line. I thought they were better at the tackles. I think they're pretty solid in terms of run blocking. I think they have some problems in pass pro, and I think they have some center problems, whether it's Addison Nichols in there or not. And I also think the depth is starting to really be challenged for those guys now that you got a couple important pieces out. C minus. That might be a little harsh. C, I think, is where I'll go for the O-line.
So I went C plus just because I'm grading them on a little bit of a curve. Acknowledging, I mean, the Kudus thing I'm not going to keep talking about because I think he's going to be out for a while. So we can't keep being like, oh, they're missing one of their guys. Like, he's not going to be there for half the season.
Yeah,
at least. But just with the unexpected wrinkle of Addison Nichols going out. And if you look at PFF, and look, we reference PFF a lot here. We're not saying it's the gospel. It's guaranteed, right? Some of these will change on Tuesday. But if you look at the PFF grades, you can kind of see Amarian Harris and Amari Wiggins were the two worst graded offensive linemen. It's kind of like, oh man, those are the two positions that Arkansas got a little bit of a situation there. But frankly, there were less like huge miscues than I expected, given the fact that they've had to move guys around and are plugging in guys at offensive line. And so I gave them a little bit of credit for that. And I mean, to be fair, they've, I would say, safely asserted themselves in the run game. I mean, and UAB got ran on by ULM, so I'm not going to give them too much of a pat on the back for controlling the line of scrimmage against UAB in the run game. But I do think like that has to take into account a little bit in their grade. And I'm with you where I feel like in obvious passing downs, when teams decide to bring pressure, they're getting home at a pretty high rate. So the last week, I believe it was 16 pressures that the offensive line allowed. That number dropped to 10 this week. But every player on the line gave up at least one. Braun only allowed one pressure. Carmona 3, Blackstock 2, Wiggins 2, Harris 2. So pretty evenly spread out there. Again, it's not like you're looking at it and you're like, oh, this guy's bad, this guy's bad. But it's just they're okay. Like, they're okay. Is that fair to say? Like, again, like, we're talking about an offensive line that last year was really one of the worst in the country and, like, was a huge, like, the offense couldn't do much because of it. It's certainly not that. Like, that's not what's going on here. But I don't know if I'm super confident that, hey, if they face elite pass rushers, they're going to be able to slow them down. And based on what we heard in fall camp, it seemed like Landon Jackson and Nico Davier were just busting them up every day. And those guys haven't really been able to get loose against other teams. So it really, I'm curious to see what this offensive line looks like against legitimate edge rushers, because I'm not sure they faced a ton, because Oklahoma State's top guy was out for most of the game as well. And so, again, it's like I'm giving them a decent C+ grade here, but I'm not giving them a high confidence moving forward.
Yeah, I'm worried about pass pro. Like, if it was 100%. One of those things like where I say, okay, Andrew Armstrong gets an A and the rest of the receivers get an F, then I feel like, run blocking might get an A and pass pro might be more in that D+ kind of range. Yeah. I think they're going to get cooked off the edge against SEC defensive linemen. I do worry about that. But you can't grade them on that. It's just on the game that we just saw. And there were some improvements there from, like, Blackstock had a really rough game at Oklahoma State. He was much improved. So that was really good to see.
They needed that.
The only thing I'll kind of push back on is the deal with Nichols and Amari Wiggins coming in there. It turns out that Nichols his ankle was hurt the whole week in practice. And so he was, just kind of halfway going through practice, and they were trying to work him up. And then he was able to do a little bit more on Thursday, and he was heavily taped going into the game. So they had a pretty good indication that they might need to turn to Amari Wiggins there. Like, it wasn't like he was just like, oh my gosh, we're 3 plays in. I thought I was going to be able to just chill with a Gatorade bottle. Now I got to roll in. Like, they knew that this is a very real possibility. So they can miss me with the thing about being blindsided, having to put him in there or whatever. But it is, it's an issue either way. Like, they got snap problems. Nichols did, Wiggins did, and it's timing, it's placement. It's just, they really need to figure that out, because we know how important it is for Bobby Petrino's offense to be in sync. Timing is so important. Like, he's so meticulous with all those little details. Like, that's the foundation of it. That's the biggest part. So, they got to get that figured out. But yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's an improved unit over last year. It's not a complete disaster like that was, and we'll see how they hold up in the SEC. Moving to the defensive side of the ball, defensive line, and you can tell from Sam Pittman's comments in the postgame when he was asked about it and gave about a 1-sentence answer, F. I mean, that's all I got. They got absolutely bullied by UAB up front, who was just getting worked by ULM last week. No real pressure. I mean, they had 2 tackles for loss and 1 sack against UAB. That's just not going to cut it. And yeah, I mean, Landon Jackson, like, individually, he was better, even though, he's catching a brunt of the flack. I'm glad he took some accountability after the game with some of his comments. But he was kind of the least of my worries, honestly, on that defensive front yesterday. Everyone else just kind of felt like a non-factor. I was very disappointed in that. And I'm super, super concerned about the defensive line going into SEC play.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely the biggest, when I look at this team, big picture, I just can't look past this defensive line where I'm like, we talked last week about how the snap counts were crazy and they were relying on their top guys too much. And we were like, hey, well, against UAB, at least you can rotate against UAB. Curtis, here were the snap counts. Landon Jackson plays 65 snaps. Eric Gregory, 47. Cam Ball, 54. Nico Davier, 45. Kiwi Rose, 36. Quincy Rhodes plays 7 snaps. Junkaj played 28 and generated 0 pressures, was just out there getting cardio. Yeah. And Jaffrard played 6 snaps. And even Jaffrard and Rhodes at least recorded a pressure each. Like, they were at least involved and kind of were out there. Junkaj has truly, and I mean, I don't want to like rag on the guy, but he's brought nothing to this defensive line. It's a lot of times he's just kind of out there. But yeah, if you look at just the pressures generated, so PFF graded Landon Jackson very well. I'll just, like say that and look again, not saying it's gospel or all that. They credit him with 6 pressures, which is a very high number for one defensive lineman. But the rest of the group combined didn't even match that. He had 5 pressures from the entire D line outside of him and 6 from Landon Jackson. So I'm going with the D here, and it's the same. And it's the same as the receivers, where if you take Landon Jackson, there's nothing positive to evaluate from the group. UAB didn't move the ball at will. They didn't, score on every possession or anything, but it wasn't because of anything Arkansas did. Like when Arkansas got stops, it was just because UAB didn't complete passes, or they just, ran into somebody. They really didn't feel like Arkansas's defensive line controlled the line of scrimmage, like gave them, pushed them back at all. It wasn't like they got blown off the ball either. They held up pretty well in the run game. I don't know what the final rushing numbers were, around like 100 yards for UAB, something like that, which again, can't give you that much credit for shutting down UAB's run game. And also, Curtis, I'm just going to throw this out there, and this is going to sound a little bit sacrilegious. Ollie Gordon hasn't gotten going against anybody all year. Oklahoma State's offensive line they're not good. They can't get a push in the run game against anybody. And so that performance, we can't keep being like, hey, well, you shut down Ollie Gordon, because at this point, like Ollie Gordon's averaging like 2.6 yards a carry on the year. And so even that performance, which is a good performance in the run game last week, hasn't aged super well. Yeah, Curtis, I'm super concerned about this defensive line. And again, like we've said all year at the offseason, throughout the offseason, we were saying we feel good about that first group, but after that, it gets really bleak. So when you have a first group that's also kind of underachieving, because Landon Jackson hasn't really gotten back and involved in the pass rushing and hasn't made his impact as much as we've kind of expected. Nico Davier hasn't flashed a ton. He's had some moments here and there. They just really don't generate enough pressure on opposing quarterbacks. I mean, you let this Zeno kid pick you apart, man. It's going to be really rough in the SEC if you're going to continually give quarterbacks that much time. And Curtis, I just don't know how to justify the fact that they don't even trust their second unit to play double-digit snaps.
Yeah.
That's just really hard to wrap your mind around.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. And I will also credit UAB's offensive coaching staff. Like, they really schemed up Arkansas's defense really well, like super well. Had them off balance, had them playing on their heels. And so I've got to give them credit for that. But yeah, it's just at best, because you're right, like they weren't just getting blown off the ball, but to have a stalemate against a UAB team in the trenches, that's not good. It
looked like a Conference USA game.
Yeah, man.
Just two evenly matched units just going head to head.
Right. And so I don't know what this is going to look like for that defensive line moving forward, because it's kind of what we talked. That's why, trusting your depth was one of the biggest keys in our minds going into this game. And yeah, it was closer than expected. So I get it to a degree, but man, like, what's going to change, I guess, moving forward?
I'm sure they're going to start trusting those backups against Auburn, Curtis. I'm sure.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. The jury's definitely out on that one. Linebackers, Andrew, I had a really difficult time, I think, with this, because on one hand, like, you look at just the raw box score, and it's kind of like, okay, like, these guys not too shabby. Steven Dix, shout out to him, man. Came in, had 10 tackles. 5 of those were solo. I thought he popped. I thought he looked pretty good in there. Xavier Sori, 8 more tackles. Brad Spence, he had 5 tackles, but he had the 1 sack for Arkansas. Like, the sack that they did get wasn't even the defensive line. It was him. Yeah, where he just really gobbled that dude up. And he's fast as hell. Those linebackers are fast as hell, but it's almost to their own detriment in ways. They got to stop. You got to stop ripping helmets off. You got to stop. You got to stop grabbing face masks. You got to stop getting the personal fouls. And it's looking at you, sorry, okay, because you're really, really good. So skip that part of it, and then you're great. But they had a hard time. And again, some of this is coaching, but some of it's just technique and understanding. They had a hard time dealing with UAB's dump offs and those nakeds that they were running. C plus, I don't like it's tough, man. I don't know, because there are a lot of things about that unit I like. It's the group on the defense that I feel the best about, and I thought they did some good things, but like, that was just a huge part of UAB's success offensively, and they couldn't really take it away.
I went C as well, Curtis, just straight up C.
Okay.
I feel like you should almost like start it at C. You know, back in the day on 2K when they had like the teammate grade and it would start at C, and when you'd make a nice pass or you'd fill your lane correctly and all that, and it kind of fluctuate. I think there was like plays here and there where you're like, oh, hey, Steven Dix, really huge third down stop. Oh, Brad Spence, nice sack. And then there would be, oh, you ripped a guy's helmet off, or oh, that tight end got wide open for 20 yards. Defending tight ends on the flat and just kind of out towards the line or towards the sideline. It's really, you know, everyone always says sideline to sideline, but it doesn't seem like Arkansas's defense. I don't know if it's just a scheme thing. Like when teams get out on the edge, whether it's running backs or tight ends, they're just wide open all the time. It's like the one soft spot in this Arkansas defense, and teams, the good play callers, have really figured that out. You know, we talked about the Auburn game a lot the other day, talking about Peyton Thorne and all that. That was one thing that Auburn just hammered. Hugh Freeze figured that out. Like, oh, if I dump it off to the tight end there near the sideline, it's just going to be wide open all day. And they really abused him there. And so I'm kind of with you. I echo a lot of your sentiments of like, you know, there were moments where, you know, Steven Dix, I think he's actually he's a linebacker that's helping him. And he looks the part, certainly. And so it's nice to see that. By the way, Anthony Switzer made a couple plays early in this game. I didn't see him a ton late. I don't know if he got banged up or what. He made a really nice play on the first drive where I was like, oh, look, Anthony Switzer, he showed up. Good for him. Yeah, same with Brad Spence. Like he has moments here and there. Still, I'm not blown away by the group at all. I think Sori's a good player. I think they're overall serviceable, but I'm not blown away by anybody. But also, I'm not super concerned. Like, I'm not nearly as concerned about the linebackers as I am the defensive line. And I feel like there's going to be matchups where Arkansas's linebackers make a ton of plays. And also, I got to give them, Arkansas hasn't had teams running on them a ton. I know they only played UAPB week 1, and we're trying to give some of that credit to the defensive line. I feel like this linebacker group is a big part of why teams haven't really been able to get wild in the run game. But yeah, overall, I say all that to say C. They were all right. Yeah. They were all right.
Yeah, for sure. And it's tough when you look at the the coverage grades on PFF, because it's hard to sometimes attribute, especially like we were talking about beforehand. Like if Arkansas is in a bunch of zone, it's like, okay, well, who's the nearest guy or whatever. So the targets to reception thing, whatever. But I mean, based on what they have, like Steven Dix, he was targeted 3 times. They got 3 receptions. Sori was targeted twice. They got 1 off of him. Anthony Switzer targeted once, nothing there. But then Brad Spence was targeted twice, and they had 2 receptions on him. So just those little things, in the flats that you talked about there. And I feel good about that group. I think they can clean that up. What I will say about them, kind of like I alluded to earlier, they've got SEC speed on the second level. Like those dudes are fast, man. And I remember noticing it with Steven Dix early in the season. And then I remember noticing it with Sori last week, and then Spence on that sack this week. I was like, holy crap, like this dude's really fast. So I do like that from him. The secondary, it's a huge concern for me. And it's not corner to this week. If you go look at it, you didn't have Jalen Braxton. You had Cuddy Robinson and Jaheim Singletary in there. And honestly, I thought both of those guys were okay. Not great. They were okay. Where Arkansas was getting picked apart was at safety and nickel. Danico Slaughter, I mean, I love him, but you might have to make a move there. I mean, it's a couple weeks in a row where it's been really, really glaring. TJ Metcalf had a rough game in coverage. I mean, he was targeted 7 times, gave up 5 receptions there. Slaughter was targeted 7 times, gave up 5 receptions. Jaden Johnson was targeted 4 times, gave up 4 receptions. So if you're wondering where the 235 or whatever passing yards came from, most of them came safety nickel more than the receivers beating corners out there. So I don't know, man. D plus, C minus.
Exact grade I had I had it written down, D plus.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's like
a huge problem on the back end too, by the way, but carry on.
No, for sure. I definitely think so. And it's kind of crazy because if you had told me coming into this game that Arkansas was going to give up 240 passing yards or whatever and kind of get picked apart by Zeno, I would have probably thought that it was the corners. I could have predicted the Slaughter thing because, like you said, I mean, I think he was targeted 15 times last week. I really, Curtis, when I saw 5 for 7 for 81 yards, which by the way is not great, I really was like, those numbers are lower than I thought. It felt like he was targeted 12 times.
Yeah.
And then even after he would allow the reception, and I think PFF has it written out, like about 30 of those yards were after the catch, where he was letting guys catch it and then still letting them, go on. So, yeah, they looked like they had a tough time staying in front of UAB's guys. And UAB's got some athletes at receiver. That was like one of the first things that jumped out where you're trying to talk about UAB of like, oh, yeah, they actually have some athleticism out there. But still, man, it's like you're going to face much better quarterbacks, much better receivers. And so, yeah, it's not even like they were disastrous in this game, so to speak, especially given the context of, a couple of their top guys being out. But I just am really concerned about that group moving forward. And secondary, man, in the offseason, there were times where we look at it on paper and you're like, hey, this might be a strength of the team. It ain't, man. Arkansas is a legitimate issue in the secondary, and we'll see what it looks like when you get Braxton back. Maybe that helps. Getting Hudson Clark back, we'll see how they navigate that. Having TJ Metcalf and Hudson Clark split time will probably help them get the most out of both those guys. But I'm really wondering. I know Hudson Clark spent some time at nickel, and I know fans are going to hate that because they think, oh yeah, you can't guard anyone and all that. Which, there's a reason he's not starting there. But I wonder if they're going to experiment there. Tevis Metcalf is another one where I thought him and Selman Bridges were we were gonna see them early in their freshman year. I'm kind of surprised that neither, especially Tevis, hadn't gotten a look there at nickel. But I agree. I think that the Slaughter thing is and I don't want to rag on the kid. I know a lot of people have been very critical of Slaughter, and it's just kind of easy to point at your TV screen and be like, that guy sucks. But I think opposing teams have certainly figured out where to attack this Arkansas defense. And man, if UAB was able to exploit those issues as well as they did and as consistently as they did, really makes you concerned for some of these really good play callers and really good quarterbacks that Arkansas is about to have to face here in the coming weeks. And so, yeah, D+, man, I really am concerned about that secondary. And maybe I'll feel differently when they get a couple guys healthy. And I'm sure they're going to have their adjustments. I actually think T-Will, it's rare that I see Arkansas play defense and something happen. And I'm like, oh, man, what was T-Will thinking there? Because it's rarely like a scheme issue. I really don't think it is. Most of their completions over the top or their big plays that they allow are just guys getting beat, which is concerning against UAB, how often it happened.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And yeah, the tackling's got to be better on the back end. They go too high. They don't wrap up. They're trying to strip instead of tackle. That's problematic. And it's been a problem, the entire season at this point. They shorted up a decent amount against Oklahoma State after it was a problem against UAPB. And then they kind of had a setback from that front. And that's really the defense as a whole. I noticed in this game, it was weird how many times they were trying to shoulder tackle guys in this game. So, listen, Arkansas won the game, but it was not overly impressive. They got a lot that they've got to clean up, and that's, it's reflected in the grades. And the reason it's harsh is because I think we both agree that most of these position units, sans like running back or whatever, we know that they did not play up to their potential. Like they could just been better, man. So it kind of is what it is. Special teams. I'm going to go B+ for special teams. They snuck the early onside kick. So yeah, shout out to Monte Harrison. I wish he would have taken it to the crib. Who did that? Was it Grant Morgan that fielded one of those onside kicks? And
I think it was Bumper. Pool.
Okay, Bumper. Yeah.
Housed one.
Yeah,
and he got hawked. But yeah, he nearly housed a kick against somebody.
Yeah, man. Ramsey, nice bounce back. I know he missed the one. Somebody in our comments said that basically accepting 3 or 4 from a field goal kicker is peak Arkansas mediocrity.
75% is like borderline the goal for like everyone. And also the distance of the attempts is worth noting. I mean, they were all 40+. 3 of 4 on actually, that's a lie. He had a 28-yarder, but I mean, he made a 51-yarder, made a 40-yarder, and missed a 45. Yeah. I mean, if you want me to be mad about it, I can pretend to be, but like,
yeah, no, I was I was
That's
fine with
about
it,
like
man.
what you can hope for from a
Right.
college kicker.
Yeah, I was surprised to see Ramsey run back out there, quite honestly. So
I was too.
for him to bounce back and go 3 or 4, I'm okay with that. Hopefully he doesn't have to attempt 4 a game. So did they punt?
They did not punt.
Okay,
Another
yeah.
Devin Bale useless game. I mean, he did do well on his kickoffs.
Yeah, captain didn't even get to play. That's crazy, man.
That is messed up.
What I will say, they need better awareness on kickoff return. To start
You mean just stop taking them out? Is that what you mean?
Stop taking them out, dude. To start the second half, when like you kind of battled back, you're down 17-3, you get into the half 20-20. I don't know if you could really call that momentum given the circumstances, but you really need a good drive to start the second half. Like you need to start it better than you started the first half. And to field one, halfway deep in your end zone and try to bring it out, and you get stuffed at the 15. It's like, why would we want to start a half that way? It's an awareness thing for me.
That one play is why I'm going C+.
Okay.
But I do think if it was just Kyle Ramsey, I'd give him a B. Just a B by himself. But no, yeah, that's like a pet peeve of mine. There's a lot of pet peeves I have with football. I hate when punt returners don't catch the punt that they should catch and they let it bounce for 10 yards. And Satania let one bounce, but it wasn't like an egregious one because it was a low punt and it ended up not being too bad. But I hate that. I hate whenever they fair catch and catch 7-yard line. Punt returners do that. And I hate when kick returners take it out. Like, you need to be supremely confident that you're getting to like minimum the 25. I mean, you get it at the 25, and now in the NFL, you get it at the 30. It's like, I just have a hard time taking it, even if it were 1 yard deep. I'm like, It just is crazy that teams do that. And by the way, I guess we should notice that Satania been demoted. Kicker, he's no longer the kick returner. He's the Rodney Hill has that honor now.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting.
Perhaps it should be Monte Harrison. He looked great on that onside kick return.
Hey, leave it to the outfielder to be on the hands team, man. I like that a lot. And honestly, it was an underrated moment in that game because Buddy had they have given up that onside kick, that would have been really dicey, really dicey. Yeah. So, but hey, whatever. It's just
Scott Fountain had his boys ready.
That's right.
Don't try that on Scott Fountain, bro. Do not try that on Scott Fountain.
Give that man his flowers. What the hell is going on here? Just a inexcusably flat start again in Fayetteville. I mean, it's rinse, wash, repeat at this point with that kind of stuff. But I get it. Like, for anybody who's optimistic about it, or you just don't want to feel like crap about this football program. Yes, they did win. All right, they survived.
Congrats.
They got the 2-score win. You're 2-1. Yeah, I get it. You could be Mississippi State. You're not. But you can still look at this and objectively say, boy, they got to get a lot better. And it's probably not what we want to accept moving forward. And also, I think they will be. I bet that this report card is going to be much less stinging after this Auburn game, win or lose, because that's just what they do. Like, they're going to go on the road against an SEC team and play better than they did against UAB at home. I can almost guarantee it.
I agree. I get that exact same feeling as well. And Curtis, I know there's probably a lot of people who are watching this like, man, these guys are really rough, and like they're hating on these guys, and they hate our Hogs, and man, they don't want to see us win and all that. Guys, we have no issue coming to you after the Auburn game because we're going to be right back here doing the same thing next Sunday, and we will gladly hand out those A's and B's. We're like the teacher. We want you to learn how to read. We're trying. We're dumbing down. We gave you the study guide. We're telling you what to do. You think we want to get our red ink out? No, we don't. But we must do. It's what we're called to do. We must critique this football team and tell these athletes that they suck. Like that's what we were called on this earth to do. But no, or seriously though, like again, we're just grading the performance for what it was, and it wasn't a great performance. And frankly, Curtis, I thought we were pretty optimistic after the Oklahoma State game of not really ripping into the position, because the specific position groups, you go piece by piece and you're like, a lot of these you feel really good about. And we accounted for that. But it is what it is. And I look forward to seeing how this team responds. Cause I agree with you. I definitely think like you're going to get a more inspired effort. Will that lead to a win? We'll see. I need to look a little bit closer at Auburn, but I'm interested to see how a few of these position groups respond to the challenge. D-line is the only one that I'm like truly like I don't see a path forward.
Big picture. Yeah. I think I'm with you on that one for sure. Like Taylor Green, I was harsh on him today.
We know he can be better, and we know he will be better.
Seen it, man. Yeah, and I expect that to happen. But yeah, I'm with you. D-line.
That's the one I like. I need someone to convince me that it's not a disaster there. But also, I would also encourage fans to comment if you want. You give your grades, and like we're not here to we're giving ours, and we're kind of we disagree on some of these, but like we won't judge it too harsh. Just give us your grades because I mean all opinions are valid. Let's hear them.
Yeah, I mean I appreciate everyone that calls us idiots. Continue to do that, but then also include yours.
Yeah.
I just want to know
why we're idiots. I need people to be more specific. We're not above criticism, but say, hey, I really hate you guys because I think the linebackers are awesome, or because a lot of times people just be like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, you got to be more specific. We talked for an hour.
We're trying to get better, just like the team,
Yeah, the whole time we didn't know what we were talking about. We were wrong the whole time. I'm sure we had a few correct takes in here.
I would hope so, man. Okay. Are we done talking about this game now? Like, are we turning the page? Is this what the report card has become? We talk about it one more time on a Sunday morning, then we're just done.
Yeah, we're throwing the film away now.
Yeah.
We're on to Auburn.
On to Auburn.
I'm on to Auburn. That's
1-0 next week.
I'm thrilled to be on to Auburn. I'm so sick of this UAB game, man. We weren't excited going in. I'm excited to put that in the rearview mirror.
Heard that, man. All right. Well, we're out of here. Appreciate everybody, in all honesty, for tapping in with us, listening along, giving us the business when you don't like what we have to say, and praising us when you do. Just keep it coming. But for Andrew Ellis, this has been Curtis Wilkerson with Inside Arkansas. Make sure you get subscribed everywhere you need to get subscribed, and we will be back next week. Everybody have a good day.